Hi everybody and welcome to Observing with Webb video for February of 2015. We've got a fairly interesting month. It's nothing really special going on, but you can see all of the 5 planets, just like last month, and you've got the moon kind of going in and seeing each of those, visiting each one throughout the month, and there is a very close encounter between Mars and Venus, which is really neat for anyone with binoculars or a nice camera. So let's go ahead and just talk about the planets that you can see in different times of the night throughout the month. Now, if you're looking out right after sunset, I have it set right now for sunset on February 1st. So what you can see off in the west or southwest is you can see Venus and Mars, okay, right up over here. Now, yeah, sunset right about there. So Venus and Mars are going to be there throughout the whole month, although there is something really interesting that happens with Venus and Mars. And with Venus and Mars, you'll notice as I increase the day, the next day, the next day, the next day, you notice that they keep getting closer to each other. Let me zoom in a little bit more. They keep getting closer to each other, and in fact, Venus gets closer and closer and closer and closer to Mars. And what we find is that on the 22nd, Venus is closest to Mars. Okay, so there's Venus and Mars on the 19th. On the 20th, the moon is actually right nearby, a very, very thin crescent moon, but it's over there, right over there. So on the 20th, you get the moon close to Venus and Mars, and on the 22nd, Venus is closest to Mars at that point. So it's really neat to see. And let's zoom out for the rest of the month. You'll notice that as the month goes by, they start splitting apart again, and Mars starts getting closer to the sun, and Venus is still pretty much on its way up. So Venus and Mars around sunset look in the west. Now, also around sunset, I'll go to the middle of February, and let's zoom out and take a look along the ecliptic, see if there are any more planets. And yeah, there's Jupiter. Jupiter is pretty much already up once the sun sets, and you'll see Jupiter essentially move as time goes by. I'm going hour by hour. You'll see that Jupiter will rise up, head toward the southeast, then go toward the south and reach its peak, its peak height. And then it'll start going down toward the west in the early morning and set right around sunrise, depending on what part of the month it is. And so, yeah, you can see Jupiter throughout the entire night. East in the beginning of the night, west at the end of the night, and into the morning. Now, also going on in the mornings, you'll see Saturn popping up over here in the southeast. You'll see that popping up around 2 a.m., something like that. So if you're out after 2 a.m., look in the southeast and you'll see Saturn. And that's going to keep rising and rising until sunrise, and let's say sunrise is right about 6 a.m. So from 2 to 6 a.m., you should get a good view of Saturn. And in the morning, it'll be pretty much in the south over here. If you've noticed, lately even, you can see Scorpio in the morning sky, and Saturn is that extra star up in this area. And then you can see Mercury. Let me set this to sunrise. You can see Mercury off in the southeast, although it's very, very low on the horizon, so I wouldn't really make a big effort to go see it. But again, you've got Mercury in the morning, you've got Saturn in the morning, you've got Jupiter throughout the night, and as we go backwards in time, you've got Mars and Venus up in the west at sunset. Now, let's talk about the things that are going on throughout the month, and let's use the moon as our guide. So let's go to February 3rd. February 3rd, we go and we look in the east and we find a nice full moon. We start off with a full moon on the 3rd, and that is also a close encounter between Jupiter and the moon. That's as close as they're going to get all month. They're about 5 degrees apart right there. And so you notice if you look at the moon throughout the night, as the night goes by, you notice that the moon rises and reaches its peak in the south and then is going to set in the west. Okay, but that's not the most interesting part. So if we move another day ahead, the moon is further from Jupiter, and it's a little less lit, and we keep going. It moves across the constellations, and on the 12th, it's in Libra, and on the next day, it's in Scorpio, right next to Saturn. All right, so if you're looking for Saturn, you're having trouble finding it, go out on the 13th, the morning of the 13th, and you'll see a half-lit moon right by Saturn. Okay, Saturn's going to be that bright star right nearby, and if you have binoculars, you can see its rings or its lobes, its ears, if you will. Now, technically, the last quarter moon is on the 11th, so this is when exactly half of the moon is lit up. 2 days later, it's very close to Saturn. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to have to get up earlier and earlier, okay, or later and later, depending on how you look at it. And on the 14th, the moon is thinner. 15th, it's thinner. 16th, it's thinner. And on the 17th, it's very, very thin. Probably won't be able to see it, but the moon will be over here, and Mercury will be over here, nice and lit up. So you might be able to catch that if you have a good view of the horizon and probably a good pair of binoculars as well. But now we've gone through basically half of the lunar phases. We're now at the 18th. It's a new moon, which means if we want to see the moon, we're no longer looking in the morning. We're now going to look at night. So I'm switching to sunset and switching to the west. And the 18th is the new moon, so darkest skies, can't see it. 2 days later, the moon and, whoops, get that back up there. 2 days later, you've got the moon very close to Mars and Venus. In fact, if you get out around sunset, let's say 5:45, wait until you can see Venus. That's going to be the brightest star in that area, or the moon. I'm guessing you'll see Venus first, but the moon's a very, very thin crescent. So you can find the moon. Saturn is 5 degrees up and to the left, and by 6. Oh, and Mars is only. Wait, hold on. I got that wrong. Sorry. Looking at my wrong note. Get out around 5:45 p.m. Wait until you can see Venus, and you'll see a very thin crescent moon. Now, 2 degrees to the left is Venus, and less than 1 degree is Mars. Okay? Really cool. You can probably even get them in one picture frame, depending on your lens. Just not even really using a zoom, or maybe using the zoom, but they're very close together. This isn't something that happens very often. Then what you'll see is the next day, the moon will be thicker. Next day, it'll be even thicker. And again, the 21st and the 22nd, that's when Mars and Venus are very close together. And let's see, let's get it dark. So the moon is setting throughout the night. And let's move up one more day. Another day, and then on the 25th, you've got the first quarter moon. The right half is lit up. You can only see this from about sunset until about midnight. And yeah, really, that's it for February as far as events go. If I were to encourage you to look at some constellations, okay, I would say get out there and look for Orion. Okay, even by 8 p.m., it's in the south, and it's high up there. It's a vertical bow tie. It's got these 3 bright belt stars here. You got bright Betelgeuse in the top left, bright Rigel in the bottom right. It's really neat, and if you've got a telescope or binoculars, zoom in on this Orion Nebula. It's really neat to take advantage of good winter seeing. And if you follow those belt stars to the right, you'll find, well, the moon on February 25th, but let's say 26th. If you follow them to the right, you'll find Taurus right over here. And if you keep going, you follow them to the right and keep going a little further, you'll see the Pleiades. Those are my favorite ones to look at least in the winter. What you could also do is look straight up. And if you're looking straight up, and let's say right around sunset, let's add a little bit of time, let's say 7 p.m. Yeah, you can see Auriga up there. You can maybe see Taurus. It's a little bit off to the side. Okay. But let's go 11 or 12, let's go midnight. Midnight, you'll be able to see Leo Minor. Leo is a little bit off from the zenith. Ursa Major is off from the zenith, but you can see Leo and Ursa Major on opposite sides of the zenith. But let's say you're getting up very early. Let's say sunrise minus about an hour. And you can see the spring constellations, which would be Bootes, Corona Borealis, and Hercules. They're coming up in the early morning because we're coming around winter's end. And I think that's pretty good for the February sky. Don't forget to go out and check out all the planets and see if you can find Venus and Mars very close together. And send some pictures. Tell me about it. Put some comments in the YouTube comments and enjoy it. I hope you guys have some time off on Monday after the Super Bowl with this snow, and maybe we'll get some clear skies soon. All right. Have a great February, and I wish you very clear, dark skies for the month of February.